Liverpool have beaten Chelsea by 2-1, and in this video we're going to be looking at how they did it, including a new hybrid role for Curtis Jones and an exploit in Chelsea that Arne Slot saw and utilised to great effect to give Liverpool the win. One of the most impressive things about this victory that Liverpool have got is the manner in which they gained it, and by that I mean the fact that they changed their way of playing and really altered what they did to try and better this Chelsea side. But I want to start by talking about Chelsea, because I don't want this to seem like Chelsea weren't in the game. Far from it, especially in the first half. I was really impressed with the positions that Chelsea managed to get themselves into. So we know Chelsea like their box formation. In particular, Enzo Maresca loves having this box formation, and they overload in midfield. But instead of having a defender or a fullback coming into a central midfield position, what you saw was Malo Gusto out on this left-hand side move forwards into almost a left-hand 10. This is meant to be in conjunction with Cole Palmer moving centrally as well on that right-hand side. And it made Chelsea look something like this. Jackson forwards and Palmer would be ahead as well. Now you've got your box. Romeo Lavia came into the starting lineup and he partnered Moises Caicedo really well, and I actually thought this worked out, and you can see why Chelsea did it from the get-go. Number one, it gives them better defensive solidity in the centre of the park. Number two, it allows still for that attacking prowess, and it also gives that overload in midfield. But you've still got to have your players come across. You've still got to have your back three. So Colwill moves, Tosin Adarabioyo moves, and Reece James, who comes back into the starting lineup, moves. I really like this positioning for Reece James. Like him as a right-sided centre-back when you have Malo Gusto inverting. Really nice. But again, like I said, it's not like Chelsea didn't have their moments, and in particular they scored a goal. So you got Malo Gusto, who's currently inverting, and he's taking the ball and he's going to pass it over to Caicedo. Now, one thing that I think Liverpool didn't do as well in one scenario is the way they defended this, and we're going to break it down right now. So you've got Gusto moving infield and he passes over to Caicedo. I don't think the tenacity is enough to be able to stop this. If you look at the amount of space he's got to be able to pick his head up and pick a pass, it's not really good enough, and I think somebody needs to do a better job here. Similarly, I think you've got to look at Van Dijk for this particular scenario. Although Konate sees Jackson, I think Van Dijk is too square when the pass gets played. But you look at him, he's too square on. He's not dynamic enough. He's not ready to turn and run. Konate is, and it just gets ahead of Van Dijk when the pass gets played by Caicedo. It's really well done by Chelsea, and I think they need to be given a lot of credit because it was a cracking game, and the tactical differences between both sides was really interesting to see. Jackson is onside, but just look at Van Dijk. He's just not there. He's not quite there, and we can actually have a better look at this. He's not quite there. He's too square on. Konate's playing them onside, and in the end, Jackson finishes brilliantly. But it was the one mistake that I think Liverpool really made in this match, and they got punished for it. But it was a brilliant game, and Chelsea more than played their part. Although Chelsea managed to get a number of plays down this left-hand side in particular, down the right-hand side there were problems, and there were problems because of the role that Curtis Jones was given. Jones came into the midfield, I imagine because Alexis McAllister was away on international duty with Argentina, but he is the one that benefits from this. And the role that he had, from a defensive point of view, was to keep Cole Palmer quiet. And that sounds like a very simple thing, but when you've got Liverpool in their 4-2-4 defensive shape, it's really important, because you've got Palmer on to Jones, and you've got Gravenberch, who will be looking after Gusto. These two battles were extremely key. Gravenberch actually struggled to pick up Gusto on a couple of occasions, and it meant that Chelsea had the overload of midfield for the first half, or for predominantly the major part of the first half. It then allowed for the likes of Jadon Sancho to come into this left-hand side. Now, he failed to win his duel against Trent Alexander-Arnold, and there a lot of Chelsea attacks broke down. But it was really promising for an extended period of time. But then you're looking at Curtis Jones, because Cole Palmer is almost Chelsea's win condition. And by that I mean he is the player that you really need to look towards to try and get everything over the line, to try and get the ball to. He is the player that you need to look towards. And Curtis Jones did a fantastic job of almost marking him out of the game. Because of the way that Enzo Maresca likes to have his system, you don't have too much rotation. You don't have too many players roaming about. You don't have Cole Palmer going around over to this left-hand side to create overloads. It very rarely happens because Maresca likes to have his system in a particular formation, in a particular way. way, and if you've got players moving about, that stops Chelsea from having and implementing that particular system. What Liverpool did so well as well as holding their shape, what they did so well was play direct. Because of the fact that the channels would be open where James and Colwill are, that meant that Gakpo and Salah could really get a lot of joy down the wings, especially if Malo Gusto was failing to really make those recovery runs and get back into a defensive position. Because of this, you saw a lot of the time Tosin Adarabioyo and Colwill stay together, Reece James holding out on the left side, and when Gusto did come back, he was really dragged out towards where Mo Salah was. And naturally, what this did was it caused a lot of spaces in between fullback and centre-back. But at the same time, what you've also got is Curtis Jones and his movement. The ability for Jones to have a hybrid role and then go forwards and create those attacking runs next to Gakpo meant that Liverpool had an extra element of danger. Gravenberch was very good at holding a central role, and Szoboszlai was also doing his stuff as well. But in particular, Curtis Jones, really doubling up on this position, really took advantage of the fact that a lot of space was left by Chelsea once they inverted Gusto a little bit further forwards. It's in the directness of play that I think Arne Slot has seen this, and within the transition of Chelsea and them switching from a back three to a back four, I think Arne Slot saw something. And that was the time it takes for them to get back settled again. Chelsea are by nowhere near a fully settled side defensively, and I think it was that transition and the time it takes to transition that Arne Slot wanted to capitalise on. Let me try and show you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. So, here you've got Chelsea on the attack. Caicedo is currently playing a through ball into Nicholas Jackson. And we're going to look at Liverpool's defensive shape here. So you've got one set of back four, you've got the two holding midfielders, and you've got their front four, essentially defending in a 4-2-4. Chelsea are now attacking, but I want you to pay attention to something that isn't around the particular Chelsea attack, and that is the positioning of both Curtis Jones and Cole Palmer. You look at where Palmer is and look at where Jones is. Now, this attack might not come to anything, but just look how close they are. And this happened throughout the match. Jones was clearly given an instruction to really sacrifice himself from a defensive point of view to make sure that Cole Palmer doesn't get on the ball. And on the occasion that he does, it's very rarely is he able to really get a chance and a shot on target. And then when this move ends and Jackson gets his shot, look at the position of the two. They're basically holding hands. And that was so good. The discipline from Jones to really make that work. It wouldn't surprise me if Alexis McAllister was dropped out of this side because of the role that Arne Slot wanted Curtis Jones to perform in this match. It wouldn't surprise me if he was taken out due to the fact that he was away for international duty, but also at the same time, Jones was so impressive that it wouldn't surprise me if Arne Slot hadn't given this as an instruction. And this is something that I've noticed with Arne Slot, and arguably the biggest difference between him and Jurgen Klopp so far. Arne Slot is willing to almost counter-strategic maneuver and look at how other teams are playing and almost counter them. That is a major difference. Jurgen Klopp was more than happy to go, it's my team against yours, and really try to move it about. But Arne Slot is a little bit different. Instead, he looks at the frailties and the weaknesses that he could possibly expose in the opposition. And in particular, I think this is one of them. And it's how he utilised Curtis Jones in this particular example that I think is so very important. So, for example, look at this. You've got the Chelsea backline. You've got Reece James, you've got Caicedo, and you've got Tosin. Colwill has gone and been aggressive to try and stop the attack, and Malo Gusto has failed to really transition back to that left-back role. And this is the transition that I'm talking about. Because of how Liverpool was so direct, it meant that it gave them an opportunity, Liverpool, to be able to get ahead and take advantage of the space that's been afforded to them. Reece James is currently looking over his shoulder, and he's realised that he's got 2v1. Now, look at Curtis Jones. Previously, he was sat here next to Gravenberch, who has also made his way over to this right-hand side to help Mo Salah. And the pass from Salah is just sensational, who had a brilliant game as well. An assist and a goal, just fantastic. It's just one of the things that I think really needs to be noticed is the role that Jones played in this match, because it was something a little bit different. And as this progresses and as this plays on, you've got Curtis Jones with a great run around Reece James, but also you've got Cody Gakpo, and it was the directness of play that I think Liverpool did so well. Darwin Núñez ends up getting the ball, and then what have you got? You've got chaos for Chelsea. Jones ends up making a run, and it's brilliantly worked, brilliantly weighted, but look at the space. If Jones makes that blindside run across James. You've then got the ability for Darwin Núñez to play in Gakpo. It's so good, and it's again down to the direct play that Liverpool had. This ends up really transitioning towards the penalty, or the attempted penalty that was going to happen, the alleged penalty. If it was a penalty, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. But Jones has a great chance. He doesn't take the shot. Instead, he gets clattered. Is it a penalty? Let me know. But it was so well worked by Liverpool and so impressive. And it was down to that hybrid role that Curtis Jones had. Let's take a look at another example. This is in the build-up to Liverpool's penalty. And what I want you to notice is the positioning of the Chelsea defenders. You've got Reece James, Tosin, and you've got Malo Gusto. But notice it's a 3, and that's because Levi Colwill has left his space at centre-back and decided to be aggressive. But again, look at the positioning of the Chelsea midfielders, and look at the position of the Chelsea players who are further ahead. Chelsea aren't set defensively, and this is absolutely key. Look at the width of Gakpo, look at the width of Salah. Jota is making a run as well. It's so direct, and it's the directness that has really caught Chelsea off guard on a number of occasions. We've got the main man here in Curtis Jones, who had a fantastic game. He passes it over to Mo Salah. But is he willing to be resting on that? No, he's not. He's not at all. He's going to drive towards into that space that Levi Colwill has left. Colwill actually manages to follow the run, but it's then what happens later on, and it's down to the directness of play that Liverpool have. Salah takes a shot, and it ends up deflecting off of Jones into his path, and it's unfortunate for Colwill. But I just want to mention the fact that it's again another example of Liverpool being extremely direct, and in this particular scenario, heavily benefiting from it. It's clearly a penalty, he clearly clatters him, and he doesn't get the ball. But it's so well done from Liverpool, and it was really impressive. And finally, before we end, let's take a look at the Liverpool goal that was scored by, yep, you guessed it, Curtis Jones, and he is just here. But before we get on to him, I want to take a look at the positioning of Chelsea once Mo Salah has the ball out on this right-hand side. And we're going to highlight Malo Gusto, we're going to highlight the 2 centre-backs, and we're going to highlight Reece James. Look at the distance between Colwill and Gusto, and then Tosin and Reece James. It's far too wide. You can drive a bus through these spaces. And this is what I mean about Chelsea not being defensively progressed enough. They're just not quite there. Defensively, they need quite a bit of work. Offensively, I think they're doing absolutely fine. But there is something there in the defence. And Liverpool severely capitalised it. And they did that with the use of this man right here, Curtis Jones. Because it was his job to be able to make those attacking runs, those late third-man runs, because he knew that Chelsea, he knew in Arne Slot that Chelsea would not be set. And it was a brilliantly crossed ball by Mohamed Salah, just curved round. It was so well done. And as we progress this, we can see Curtis Jones just make that movement. Look at that hand up. He's asking for the pass. He knows that he's going to get a great pass from Mo Salah. And it's the weight of pass. It's the cross. It's so well done. But the blindside run, Reece James doesn't notice it. Tosin isn't looking over his shoulder. Neither is Colwill. Lavia makes an attempt to try to get there. Caicedo isn't watching. Again, defensively, they're not progressed enough. But that's okay. They're a young side, and they're taking time to understand Maresca's principles. But it's this moment that really carved open Chelsea. And if you look at this, it's a better example. You've got Reece James who's playing offside, and that is just not good enough. If there's ever going to be a criticism, I know he's loved by every single Chelsea fan, but that's not good enough. You're watching him. You can't be playing offside there. You're the one playing them on. You can't do that. But again, really well exploited by Liverpool. It was something that Arne Slot saw, the lack of a defensive solidity. If you're too direct, if you're really enticing them on and really making the most of those impact scenarios, he crossed the ball in. Reece James doesn't follow the run. No Chelsea defender follows the run, but Curtis Jones is there. And as he makes that run, the ball gets to him and he takes a bit of a good touch. I'm not too sure. I think he gives the goalkeeper a little bit too much to do if he's too aggressive, but he gets a fantastic second touch. If we just look at this, look at that. That is absolutely brilliant. And of course, he slots it home. But it was the tactical change that Arne Slot made that made this possible, and it was the inclusion of Curtis Jones that gave them the option to get this victory and the hybrid role that he played in that Liverpool midfield. Liverpool thoroughly deserved the victory, but I was very impressed with Chelsea as well. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, Take care.